Hello YouTube and welcome to my channel. Today we'll be talking about one of my favorite things. And it's not plants and it's not wine either. Like today we'll actually be talking about my all-time favorite philosophy book. It's called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And if you only had to read one philosophy book, if I only had to throw one philosophy book at you and I wouldn't care how hard it hit you in the neck, then this will definitely be it. Like, I'm saying this can learn you everything in life? Definitely no. I'm saying this can learn you how to control a big part of your emotions and also provide some crucial perspectives. Well, definitely, yes. It's a really good book. Now, first, I'm going to explain to you who Marcus Aurelius was. Marcus Aurelius has gotten really popular in recent years because I think things like Stoicism has seen quite a huge revival recently due to people like Ryan Holiday, and a lot of the other books have made it more popular. So who was Marcus Aurelius? The fun thing about Marcus Aurelius was he was adopted by Hadrian, the Emperor Hadrian. You're all the way back in Roman times, in the Roman Empire. And Marcus Aurelius was pretty much a poor kid that was adopted by the emperor. And for a long time, the palace of Rome, what some people also call the Eternal City, became most of all a prison to Marcus Aurelius. If you ask him himself, he would even go on to write that it was possible to be happy even in a palace. So he wasn't that content with being emperor, probably something that would make a lot of people happy. But something you probably also have to realize is a lot of these people being learned up to be Roman emperors were actually never that safe. They could be killed at any time. They could end up in political conflicts, and they were in this kind of court situation where they were constantly being judged for their actions. So I don't imagine it to be the best of childhoods, being in that situation, being essentially a political instrument. So in some ways I can understand why someone like Marcus Aurelius would write that. But the fun thing about Marcus Aurelius is he was one of the best emperors the Romans ever had. They would call him one of the good emperors, and they also had the bad emperors, like where Nero and Commodus and stuff like that were the bad emperors. You had people like Marcus Aurelius and Cincinnati and stuff, and also there were the good emperors. So, but what made Marcus Aurelius a good emperor was he didn't abuse power. Like, he actually used power in the service of his own people. So while a lot of evil emperors, like his son, for example, Commodus, would throw people for the lions or have people raped or have people killed for petty things, Marcus Aurelius actually used his power for the good of his people. And that makes him quite exceptional because he had very few failures as a Roman emperor. Like, the only serious failure he had was giving power to his son Commodus. So being a father, blinding him to his son, and the problems with his son was actually one of the only mistakes this leader had. And I think, like, when we often talk of dictatorships, we often say that absolute power corrupts absolutely. But I think in the case of Marcus Aurelius, what you really see is that absolute power reveals absolutely. It reveals what's in the person to begin with. So some of the Roman emperors used that power to do good, where Marcus Aurelius was one of them. And all of them became the spoiled brat they always were, like Commodus and Nero. They just had the power now to act it out without mercy and be cruel to the people around them. While someone like Aurelius used that power to enrich people around him and to do good. So that's the thing I really want you to think about. Does absolute power corrupt absolutely, or does absolute power reveal absolutely? So I think that's an important perspective to ask oneself, because some people will use power to do good and other people will use power just for themselves and do a lot of bad in the world. And maybe that's why democracy is still one of the better forms of government, because how would you know if you got Marcus Aurelius or you got Kaiser Nero, the Roman Emperor Nero? You really wouldn't. And that in itself might be a really good case for democracy, at least. The thing I really like about this text with Marcus Aurelius is he kind of like gives you an insight into both the life of Roman emperor, but also all the things he has learned from Stoicism. And I think that's really important, because Marcus Aurelius has some really good Stoic teachers and they learned him a lot of good stuff. And in this book, even though it was written as a diary and it was written between these campaigns in the field, between these different kinds of battles, it was a really good book in that way, that he kind of like wrote things down about Stoicism in an ordinary way, for like how ordinary people would like interpret it. And also, one thing that really takes this book to the next level is you actually, because it's written as a diary, you can see how Marcus Aurelius struggled with these things, like how he struggled with these ethics and how he struggled to be the best human being he could be while being this emperor who everybody expected something of. So it's also really good in the way that it will teach you these perspectives about how to be a better man, like, and also what it means to struggle. So Marcus Aurelius actually have a saying, and when you hear that saying, you will ask yourself, why should I continue reading books? But Marcus Aurelius had this saying: do not ask what a good man is, be one. Do not ask what a good man is or a good person, be one. And what he meant by that is, of course, you can always read more, you can always read all these books, but at some point you will have to start implementing it. You will have to start being a good person. So that's one important perspective. Another important perspective from this book is the dichotomy of control. like in life, you have to divide things into two circles. In one circle, you have what you can control, your own actions, for example. And in the other circle, you have what you can't control, like the weather, for example, or the unfortunate sickness or things like that out of the blue. But over here, we have what we can control. Like we can control we eat healthy, we can control that we exercise, but we can't control if we get sick or not. Like we can diminish the risk of it over here in the one circle by what we do, but we can't completely guarantee it because there's still circumstance in this circle. But Marcus Aurelius' point was we should focus on this circle, what we can actually control, and not worry too much about the other circle. You will actually see this from a lot of other Stoic philosophers like Epictetus, where he writes that often the greatest misfortune of man is man tortures himself by worrying so much about the future and things that might not come to be. So we are in this state of torturing ourselves with the future. But I think Marcus Aurelius is a really good book. He also always talks about keeping your own color true, like staying true to yourself. Like he says, I'm an emerald and my job is to keep my color green. So, and he always talks about, you always have to ask what kind of clothes fits your destiny. Like, well, what purpose fits you? Like, and how we should really understand that is what you're doing now. Is that bringing you closer to your destiny? Is it bringing you closer to your goal and what you want to do with your goal? So I think there's a lot of really important perspectives in this book, and I think in many ways the whole thing is just a great book. He also says at one point that everything repeats, like the same actors on the same stages repeats every few hundred years. Like if you know your history, you can see things repeating. And there's a saying in the world that if history does not repeat, then it at least rhymes. And I think Marcus Aurelius, because he had so many good teachers and he was a Roman emperor, that there's simply so much wisdom in this book. And that's really how I would describe it. You're getting a lot of wisdom from a very mature person. And it will also make you realize something else. It will make you realize that even though this book is over 2,000 years old, it will make you realize that the human condition has not changed. It will make you realize people still are tortured by the same situations, and they still ask the same questions, and they still hope to better themselves, and they still hope for good lives for their children and tomorrow. So I think this book is incredibly good. It teaches you self-help tools to how you can better yourself. It teaches you Stoic philosophy and a lot of philosophies of the ancient Romans. And it teaches you this human perspective, this existential perspective, where you really realize that all people struggle beside you. So it teaches you this doubt and a person trying to overcome this doubt. And maybe because of that is also kind of like existential in some way. Like this person is trying to step into his destiny and his character. So it's really good. And I think one of the main mistakes people do in philosophy is they read nearly only Greek philosophy and they forget Roman philosophy. And let me tell you right now, forgetting Roman philosophy is a huge mistake. Roman philosophy, some of it is really good. like some of the Roman philosophers are some of the sharpest philosophers on the planet at the time. And I think many people, the mistake they do is read only Greek philosophers, and they forget Eastern philosophers, and they forget Roman philosophers. And something you have to understand is, like, the Western world wasn't just created by the Greek philosophers, it was also created by the Roman philosophers, because these people were the ones that made our, like, what, a rule-based society, a judicial-based society. Like some of the first rule-based orders were in the Roman state with these, and one of the first places people had civil liberties and privileges was in the Roman state. So reading a lot of these texts from Roman society will actually kind of remove the blinders from you in some ways, because we've always been told that the Romans are very warlike and the Greeks are very peace-like. But when you truly know history, you know that's a question with really many different answers and many different time periods, where sometimes the Romans were the peaceful ones and the Greeks were the warlike ones. So I love both the Greek and the Romans, and I believe, along with the Eastern philosophers, that they can teach you different things. They can be different tools for you. So, like I said before, if I had to throw only one book after you and hit you in the neck with it, and that book had to be of a Roman philosopher, then I would say Marcus Aurelius. It's simply a great book, and if you don't read it, you will do a disservice to yourself. And I will also say, like with many other books, this was a diary. It was written as a diary. So it's not a book that kind of like, you know, you only read once. It's kind of like when it's written as a diary, you have to read it multiple times. And that's really the essence of it. It's more of a journey. And the good books are always journeys. It's journeys you come back to. It's like having a constant teacher at your side. You don't just read it once. You write down in the book, you write out the good sections, and you return to it. Maybe even once a year, but you definitely want to return to the good books, not just find new books. So that were my perspectives. And as I said, read this book.